The United Nations is going to take over the internet. You know, heaven help us. 2 or 3 years down the road, when they really get their hands on ICANN, it's going to change how the internet runs. It really will. ICANN is essentially a cataloging organization. They catalog information on all the IP addresses that are assigned. That's all they do. They assign the numbers. It's called an Internet Protocol address. It's a block of numbers separated by dots, kind of like a phone number. Users don't see it, but that's what's behind your domain name. So all the data about you is being held by ICANN. They know your name. They know your telephone number. They know your contact information, your address, etc. And what's happening now throughout the world, thanks to technocrats and technocracy moving forward, the Internet of Things is going wild right now. The Internet of Things refers to all the connected devices, your car, your home, your cell phone, your refrigerator, your thermostat, your smart meter on the side of your home or business, and everything and anything of it. It can mean your light bulbs. You know, your light bulbs now that can act like speakers, and they're connected via Wi-Fi, and they all have a discrete internet address. ICANN is going to be collecting and cataloging data on all these billions of devices around the world, having all that data at their fingertips. They know where everything is. They know when something moves. They know what data is being transmitted between them because they monitor those things. And so ICANN, within 2 or 3 years, is going to have cataloged every conceivable device in the Internet of Things. It's just inconceivable how much data they will have on the world. Now, let's say you own a refrigerator at home. It's one of those new smart refrigerators that talks to you when you're low on milk. And it has a discrete IP address because it talks to the Internet through the Internet. You can access it from your home while you're at the grocery store. Say, what am I getting low on? It'll tell you. Well, you need to pick up some eggs. You've only got 3 eggs left by my count. So by nature of knowing your refrigerator, they will identify you and very quickly be able to identify every other smart device that's in your orbit. Now they know all your smart devices. Now they can monitor traffic if they wanted to between all your smart devices. This is so comprehensive. It's just mind-boggling. Most people have no idea what the Internet of Things is. I'm telling you what they are now. You see elements of it all over the place now. But ICANN is the organization that's going to catalog and curate all of this data. If the United Nations gets their greedy little fingers on this stuff, and they love data at the United Nations, let me tell you, they're going to have this database that will literally allow them to control the world down to the most finite, granular level possible. And the United Nations will be in a position, if nothing else, to put a transaction tax, just a small little tax, here and there, to begin to generate autonomous money to keep them alive. And I am sure this is the big pork chop that the United Nations wants to get on its plate, because it's been begging for independent funding for decades and it's never been able to get it. So it only gets money by dues paid by the member nations. But if the United Nations ever gets its own independent source of funding, it will not be owing to any of the member nations anymore. They can basically say, to heck with you, we don't need your money. We have our own source of funds now. And heaven help us if the United Nations ever cuts loose from the accountability it has currently with all the nations of the world. It will be a competitor on the world stage for power. It will be great. It will have more power than any nation on earth. Well, thanks to those who are pushing technocracy on a global basis, there is a war on cash right now. They're withdrawing cash from society, and people get all worked up get their panties in a bunch, as they say, over sub-issues on taking cash away. But here's the net effect of it. It forces everyone into the banking system to be digital. In the United States, for instance, 20% of the people in our country don't even have a bank account. Well, if you don't have a bank account, you can't be controlled. You can't be tracked. So they want to force everybody into the system. And they're forcing these people to go digital. And some are going to say, well, I don't want to go digital. They say, oh, it's too bad. You'll starve. You have to see this on a global scale. The bankers and those technocrats, if you will, that are trying to control everything digitally, it obviously requires everybody to be part of the digital system. And if they won't do it voluntarily, then let's force them to do it against their will. If you go back to the original definition of technocracy from 1938 from the Technocrat magazine, this is what they said, and it hasn't changed. It's the same thing today, same proposition. It says technocracy is the science of social engineering, the scientific operation of the entire social mechanism to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population, close quote. You can see the economic nature of that, goods and services, and it's a scientific project for these people. They have to monitor it, they have to control it, obviously. And if there's any stragglers that are not in the system, they simply have to be herded up together and forced into the system. This is why you see language all over the United Nations agreements, like the recent 2030 Agenda Agreement and other stuff, Habitat 3 produced New Urban Agenda. You see the phrase, no person left behind, all the time. You see it all over the place, no person left behind. We see that in Common Core, no child left behind, right? Well, it's a coded language. What it means is everybody has to participate in the system, period, in the subject. And if you say, well, I don't want to participate in your system, say, well, then you'll simply just starve.